In this lesson, I will discuss the anatomy of the eye. Here you can see a section through the eye. We'll discuss the major structures and then locations of more minor structures as we draw, label, and try to get an understanding of where things are located in the human eye. And as we get ourselves oriented, we'll begin looking at, of course, you can find here if we look anterior here, so we're facing anterior and posterior. Also note that the eye, with its two sides, we have in red, it's going to give you guys some anatomical landmarks. The eye enters medially into the human skull. So this side will be medial, and this side will be lateral. And that ought to give us some good ways to keep up with where we are sitting and what's going on. So I just wanted to give those anatomical locations. As we begin looking at the layers of the eye, and we can continue using red here, the first layer that we want to discuss, the outermost layer here, is the sclera. The sclera is a tough fibrous layer, and it becomes continuous with this structure that begins here and here. The structure that would be sitting here would be the cornea. Cornea is clear and is a continuation of the fibrous tunic which surrounds the outermost part of the eye. As we continue looking through, the next layer that would be deeper would be the choroid layer. And the choroid would be the next deepest layer, as it becomes what we know as the vascular tunic as some parts. It will become continuous with that tunic of the eye, but we just want to get a couple ideas of the layers here. And the third and final most layer we'll discuss is the inner layer of the retina. And you can see the retina continues through here. So the innermost retina. And these three basic layers, most of which are the anatomy we're going to discuss, a lot of it will be in the retina, but we'll begin ourselves from anterior to posterior. And if you look with the cornea intact, and this structure known as the lens, in front of here would be the anterior chamber. The anterior chamber is everything that is in front of the lens. And it is full of a fluid called aqueous humor. And that's what your doctor is checking when they do, when the ophthalmic doctor, when they blow air into your eye, they're checking the pressure inside this chamber. This aqueous fluid the aqueous humor will provide for that. The lens is attached via these small structures known as suspensory ligaments, and I'm drawing here, coloring in green, suspensory ligaments. And this attaches to these structures here known as ciliary bodies. And the ciliary bodies are little muscles that will contract to change the thickness of the muscle, of the lens rather, change the lens's thickness, and this will result in changing our focal point. As light will enter the eye, we can control the amount of light that comes in using constrictors and dilators to take this structure in purple and changing its diameter. This is the iris. And the iris will dictate the size of the lack of structure that we see, this opening that goes here between the two purple lines, as your pupil. So as that structure changes in diameter, via the size of the actual iris as muscles open and close them. As light will come into the eye, it is going to pass through and it's going to strike the innermost layer of the retina. Light should come to the back of the eye at just the right angle and hit the area just about here. And this area is where you have your highest visual acuity, is the macula lutea. Now I'm going to draw a little red dot in the middle of it to demonstrate the central fovea, the fovea centralis. And as light hits that, that's where you're going to register most of your visual acuity. And there will be in the back side of the retina, I'm going to use red just to depict the back side here, you would find the pigmented area here and then the photoreceptive area all throughout the iris that will detect, or the retina, that will detect the amount of light intensity as opsins break apart, generating neural impulses, and they will be sent to this structure here, the optic nerve. Now, at the base of the optic nerve is a disc that is a blind spot called the optic disc. And you will usually see part of sclera coming out into there as well as you see your optic disc at the back of the eye. As we kind of work our way around, one of the last structures that I have yet to talk about, I'm going to erase our beam of light here and leave the fovea and just erase some of the stuff in the back here, clean things up a little. And I want to leave one of the last bits of the vascular tunic to be drawn, sitting in the back with this scalloped appearance would be your ora serrata, as it would sit in the front of the eye. All the way anterior is the most anterior part before you hit the whole entire retinal layer. And this is one of the areas in which it attaches the retina here in the anterior position. Down in the macula lutea, we would attach it there, and then at the optic disc. So the rest of the iris itself, the retina itself, can become detached if you supply some trauma to that structure. And so this should conclude a nice little video and help you guys understand the basic structures of the eye. And just the last thing to remind ourselves, that we have the anterior cavity here, you've got the posterior cavity that is comprised of, is actually filled up with what's called vitreous humor, which is more gelatinous, so this vitreous body would be in there, and you've seen that on your models pretty well. But I hope this does help you guys on some of the structures of the eye, and using this to draw, color, and label structures that you will see on the human eye models in your Anatomy 2 labs. And this concludes my video on the human eye.